The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
On the record, I'm Cody Thomas. As the defense winds down this week, tensions explode, experts clash, and Karen Reed makes her final move. Here's a quick recap of the case before we dive into the final days of testimony in the Karen Reed murder retrial.
Karen Reed stands trial again for the tragic January 29, 2022 death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, who was found dead in the snow outside of a home in Canton, Massachusetts. Prosecutors allege Karen Reed struck John O'Keefe with her Lexus during a blizzard, leaving him to die from blunt force head injuries and hypothermia. At the retrial, accident reconstruction experts from both sides take center stage. Dr. Judson Welcher, a biomechanical engineer for the prosecution, used live paint transfer tests and backing trials with a replica SUV to assert that torn fabric and tailgate fragments align with Karen Reed's Lexus backing into John O'Keefe. In stark contrast, Daniel Wolf from ARCA for the defense conducted crash dummy experiments under simulated conditions. Wolf concluded that none of his results replicated the damage on John O'Keefe's clothing or on Karen Reed's SUV. These competing expert narratives now shape the heart of the trial, with jurors weighing forensic science against reconstruction models and witness accounts.
Week 8 kicked off with courtroom drama right out of the gate. The defense demanded a mistrial for the third time, accusing prosecutors of misleading the jury. During cross-examination, prosecutor Hank Brennan pointed to holes in John O'Keefe's sweatshirt, suggesting they happened the night he died, but later admitted they were actually made during evidence processing. The judge denied a mistrial but gave the jury a correction. Judge Cannoni also limited what defense pathologist Dr. Elizabeth LaPosada could say. She wasn't allowed to call the injuries dog bites, but was allowed to talk about animal bite patterns in general. LaPosada told jurors O'Keefe likely hit a hard, rigid surface, not soft snow, and described a coupe-contre-coupe brain injury, meaning trauma on both sides of the brain. When asked if a punch could have caused it, she said, quote, "Sure, a fist is an object." Now, also on day 29, defense investigator John Teddeman admitted he didn't measure key distances from the flagpole outside 34 Fairview, a detail the defense had made a big deal about earlier.
What caused the defects in the damage to the sweatshirt as we see it here?
That was due to the interaction from the Rescue Randy sliding on the pavement surface to his position of final rest.
Is that sometimes called road rash?
Yes.
With regard to John O'Keefe's sweatshirt that you reviewed photographs of, did you see any other defects other than the right arm and the fact that it was cut off of him medically?
No.
Any other indication or any indication whatsoever of anything that you see consistent with road rash?
No.
Are the defects in the shirt that you see here consistent with the condition of the shirt of John O'Keefe as you saw it in the photographs?
It is inconsistent.
And what was your opinion and conclusion as it pertained to the subject taillight using the 29-mile-an-hour test?
It was inconsistent.
Mr. O'Keefe's body weight and size does not put him in the 50th percentile like the 9.38 arm. He's closer to the 95 percentile, isn't that fair to say?
Correct.
And there is, in fact, the 95 percentile crash test dummy, isn't there?
There is, yes.
Yeah. You chose the 50th percentile, which is shorter, yes?
Correct.
Weighs less, yes?
Correct.
And the arm weighs less. True?
Correct.
The truth is you have absolutely no study, no paper, no article that supports using a 9.38 arm for a 216-pound man who's 6'1". You have not one reference or study you can offer us right now, do you?
I don't agree with that, because again, if you look how Dr. Welcher did it, he used the 50th percentile in his drop test with the head, and to calculate the force, He adjusted for Mr. John O'Keefe's mass of the head. Same thing is done in this instance with the lighter arm. We adjust for that in the calculations.
So you have one paper, one study. I know the answer to this, but let me ask. You have one paper, one study to support that it is appropriate to use the 50th percentile 9.38 arm for a person who is 6'1", 216 pounds.
I don't have a paper because Dr. Rentschler is addressing the forces and the injuries to the arm.
When you were forming your opinions that the collision would be inconsistent to damage to Mr. O'Keefe's sweatshirt, did you consider that Mr. O'Keefe may have fallen or landed on his back?
Well, in looking at those holes, they're inconsistent with road rash. And again, to get those kind of holes, you have to have prolonged sliding contact on a rough surface.
Did you consider that Mr. O'Keefe may have fallen or landed on his back?
If you just fall and land on your back, you're not going to be sliding to get those abrasions and tearing. And again, those are not consistent with road rash.
Didn't ask that question. Did you consider?
Sorry, can you?
Did you consider whether Mr. O'Keefe had fallen or landed on his back?
No.
Did you know about or consider the multiple holes on the back of his sweatshirt when you came and formulated your opinions?
No.
You did no studies whatsoever about the damage to the sweatshirt if he fell or landed on the cold, hard ground and had broken taillight shards in his clothing, did you?
No.
What is a coup contra coup injury?
Now, it's a very interesting, peculiar injury to the head. When you have a blow to the head, the blow can either be the stationary head and there's a blow to it, or you can have the head that's moving and gets the blow. So looking at a pattern of coup contra coup helps the forensic pathologist differentiate that.
Were Mr. O'Keefe's head injuries consistent with a coup contra coup injury?
Yes.
Would you expect to see that if Mr. O'Keefe had fallen backward onto a perfectly flat surface?
No, it has to be a surface that has some small ridges in it to make those little vertical patterns.
Dr. LaPosada, you just mentioned that the laceration above the right eyelid was consistent with the application of force, correct?
Correct.
You said it could come from some object, is that right?
Correct. It was fairly small. Could be it's some sort of object.
Is it also consistent with a fist?
Sure, a fist is an object.
On day 30, Karen Reed announced that she will not testify, stating the jury had, quote, heard her voice. She made it clear that she's ready for the case to go to the jury. Dr. LaPosada returned to the stand, reaffirming her opinion that O'Keefe's injuries didn't happen on the lawn and were not caused by hypothermia. But this time, she faced a fierce cross from Brennan, who brought up her controversial past as Rhode Island's chief medical examiner. LaPosada dismissed the criticism as false and media-driven. Then the defense called their final witness, Dr. Andrew Rentschler, a biomechanist with ARCA. He told jurors that O'Keefe's injuries, especially to the back of his head and right arm, did not match a taillight impact.
Do you agree with or concur with the blunt force head injury as a cause of death?
Yes, Mr. O'Keefe died from the blunt force head injury.
Do you concur with the diagnosis of hypothermia?
No, the body did not have any hypothermia.
What led you to that conclusion?
Well, when you have we know that normal body temperature is around 98, and we know that then at the hospital that Mr. O'Keefe's rectal temperature was around 80. So we know that his temperature went down. So there are two ways the body temperature can get down. It can get down while you're alive, or a dead body also cools when it's in a cold environment. So those are the two things you have to look at.
Did you observe any signs of frostbite?
No.
Did that have any weight concerning your opinion, overall opinion, as to whether or not Mr. O'Keefe died with complications associated with hypothermia?
Well, if someone dies due to exposure to low temperatures, you expect to see not only the Wisniewski's ulcers, but you expect to see some frostbite changes in the extremities.
Based on your overall review of the medical records associated with Mr. O'Keefe, were you able to reach an opinion and conclusion as to the cause of death of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
What is that opinion?
He died of brain injuries and skull fractures due to blunt force trauma of the head.
Were you able to determine from your review of the medical records whether the injuries that you see on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm were pre-mortem or post-mortem?
Yes, I can determine that. They were inflicted prior to death.
Was there any indication, based on your review and your expert opinion, that his arm had been broken, fractured?
No, the bones were intact. No breakage, no fractures.
You said that there was a large amount of force, correct?
Sure, because there were massive skull fractures, and there's a lot of energy transmitted to the brain, starts swelling immediately.
How do you know this wasn't medium force and not large force?
Because of the extensive number of skull fractures.
So are you saying it was medium or large force?
Medium to large.
Okay. How much force is that? Can you quantify it?
No.
What other objective criteria do you have to support your opinion that Mr. O'Keefe died within 15 minutes?
My training and experience of seeing thousands of deceased people from head injuries and knowing some of their clinical course when they get immediate medical treatment, they don't survive.
But you would agree many do.
Depends on the case.
And in this case, you didn't have any opportunity to observe the progress of Mr. O'Keefe's injury that night, correct?
I'm going to allow that.
I wasn't there. The body told me what happened to it.
Did you look at any of the data evidence from the defendant's Lexus?
No, other than looking at the contours of the back to see if it had impacted Mr. O'Keefe.
When you were doing differential diagnosis, did you look at any information that would tell you what the speed of that impact may have been or allegedly was?
Well, it didn't hit him, so it doesn't matter.
So you didn't care to know anything about the car or the data in the car because you had already formed your opinion?
It did not hit him, so it was not relevant to my opinion.
Is that a different way?
By looking at the body, I could tell that there was no evidence of impact with a vehicle. So whether the vehicle was going slow or fast is not relevant.
And so you didn't try to get any information about the speed of the vehicle? It was totally irrelevant to you?
Correct.
Did you reach any opinions or conclusions with regard to the force required to produce the occipital skull fracture that you noted with Mr. O'Keefe, his head being struck by the rear tail lamp of the subject Lexus?
I did, yes. When you look at the position and configuration of the occupant, it really wasn't possible to get a skull fracture by hitting the taillight and not sustain any other significant fractures. For instance, where the taillight's positioned to have an impact to the back of the head, you really couldn't have someone positioned in such a manner to strike just the head and not have subsequent concomitant injury to the neck or any other part of the body.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
On day 31, Dr. Andrew Rentschler returned to the stand under tough cross-examination. He admitted he hadn't seen dashcam video of the scene or included taillight evidence in his analysis after claiming O'Keefe was found 10 to 20 feet from the road. In a private exchange with the judge and attorneys, Karen Reed confirmed she will not testify. The defense then rested its case. Shockingly, the Commonwealth chose not to call any rebuttal witnesses. And with that, after 31 days, 38 prosecution witnesses, and 11 for the defense, the trial now moves into its final chapter. Reed told reporters she feels confident in her case and in the jury, saying, quote, "We chose fair and truthful, civic-minded citizens."
The way I interpreted this is the one test that was performed with respect to the taillight. This is the only test I saw that Aperture performed involving the taillight and the arm. is that with this paint transfer test, they concluded that, again, the area where the paint was transferred onto the arm is consistent, the same shape and orientation as apparently the lacerations found on Mr. O'Keefe's forearm. It has nothing to do with force. It doesn't describe the force exerted on the taillight or on the arm. It doesn't describe how the arm would have moved as it hit the taillight. It doesn't describe how the taillight would fracture.
Did you come to an opinion or a conclusion as to whether or not the abrasions on Mr. O'Keefe's arm are consistent with striking the right rear taillight of the Lexus?
I did, yes.
And what is that conclusion?
That they're inconsistent with striking the taillight or being produced as a result of contact with the taillight.
In any of these tests, would you expect to see bruising, at least bruising, all over the arm at the points of contact?
Absolutely. Bruising occurs when the blood vessels just below the skin are ruptured, and it causes blood to flow into the arm.
Was there any indication that John O'Keefe suffered even a minimum amount of bruising on his arm at all?
No indication of any amount of bruising whatsoever on the forearm.
Do you have an opinion, or did you reach a conclusion, whether the biomechanical evidence in this matter is consistent or inconsistent with Mr. O'Keefe's right arm being impacted by the subject 2021 Lexus 570, resulting in a backward fall leading to the head injuries that he suffered?
I did, yes.
And what is that opinion?
My opinion is that the evidence is inconsistent with Mr. O'Keefe being struck on the right arm by the SUV and then moving laterally into the yard and falling backward.
You have no idea where the point of impact was in this collision, do you?
Nobody does.
I'm asking you, not nobody.
Yeah,
You, excuse me.
So go ahead and ask the question.
Dr. Rentschler, before this jury, have no idea where the point of impact was of this collision, do you?
That's correct. There's no evidence.
Does the absence of a bruise necessarily indicate there was no blunt force trauma to an area?
No, you have to look at all the evidence, and you have to look at the force. If there's 4,000 pounds of force applied to the body or to the arm, then certainly you would expect a bruise. And if there's no bruise, then you would have to question if that impact or contact actually occurred.
In reading the reports and evaluating the PowerPoint, would you agree there is no statement by Dr. Welcher ever in anything that you reviewed that he is claiming or stating that his paint test was supposed to be a reenactment identifying the details of how Mr. O'Keefe was standing, moving, or holding his arm at the time of the collision?
He did not state that. That's correct. Specifically, Dr. Welcher said in his report on page 9, he said, "I have conducted an accident reconstruction and biomechanical engineering analysis of this matter. If he did not recreate how he was positioned, if he did not determine the speed of impact, if he did not determine how Mr. O'Keefe's body moved, if he did not determine where he ended up, then he did not conduct either an accident reconstruction analysis or a biomechanical causation analysis. He did nothing of the sort."
Other than your opinion, let's get back to my question if I could.
I believe I answered at the beginning of that, sir.
I'm going to ask you again. My detailed question is, there is nothing in Dr. Welcher's report or any of his presentation that states he is trying to represent the exact posture, movement, and stance of Mr. O'Keefe when there was a collision. It's not anywhere in there where he stated that.
It's not stated. I'd be curious to find out what that, if that wasn't the intent of the test, I'd be curious to see what the actual intent was.
Is the answer no, it's not in there?
I think I just said that at the beginning of my answer, sir.
I'm going to ask you again, is the answer no?
The answer is no.
You have no information about the angle of Mr. O'Keefe's body at the time the defendant's Lexus was traveling backwards on January 29, 2022, do you?
We have no information that he was even hit by the Lexus, so there wouldn't be any information on the angle if his body wasn't hit.
After the defense rested and the Commonwealth silent on rebuttal, it all comes down to closing arguments and ultimately Who can convince the jury if Karen Reed is guilty of murder or the victim of a wrongful accusation? Stay with us. I'm Cody Thomas, and as always, thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you next time we go back on the record.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.